Let's talk about performance. Even though you've prepared everything, you've coached, rehearsed, paid attention to all the details, everything sounded and felt great. But when you got on stage, your breathing got stuck. Your throat felt tight, and you felt like you were yelling, or you lost your tone. So you just pushed your way through the performance and got through it somehow. Welcome to the Singer's Mind channel, where we introduce and discuss the principles of neuroscience to unlock age-old wisdom about singing, performing, and creativity. I'm Linda Bolero, and this is episode 3 in a 3-part series on how the attention network causes your inconsistent singing. In part 1, we looked at singing as a sensory motor coordination process. Yes, singing is coordination, and gave you some examples of how attention works. In part 2, we talked about how anxiety shifts your attention, whether you want it or not. But what about inconsistency in performance? That isn't directly related to anxiety or stage fright. There's a strange phenomenon that can happen in performance. Timing may feel different. Things move slower. Physical coordination may feel awkward. And it can feel like you're managing too many things at once. From a neuroscience perspective, this is not just anxiety. Performance puts the singing system under very different attentional and sensory conditions. Different than a coaching session or singing at home in your living room while you're folding the laundry. And if we don't understand those conditions, it's difficult to maintain consistency and have fun performing. In part 1 and 2, we looked at how attention supports sensory motor coordination and how anxiety alters the weighting of signals within that system. So which signals are valued in your brain? In this video, we're going to extend that even further. We'll look at how performance itself changes your attention through sensory load, multitasking, and self-referential processing, which is identity, and how that affects your singing in real time at the moment of your performance. Performance is not simply singing in front of people. It's a high-load cognitive and sensory motor condition. During performance, the nervous system is processing many things: auditory input, visual input, spatial awareness, memory retrieval, motor coordination, timing, expression, audience presence, self-monitoring. All of this occurs simultaneously, and this creates increased cognitive and sensory load. The brain doesn't process all the signals equally under these conditions, so attention is redistributed. With so many things happening at once, attentional systems prioritize signals calculated to be the most relevant to your behavior needs, or most important, most salient under those conditions. This can change how coordination is actually generated. When sensory and cognitive load increases, the system may reduce attentional access to fine-grained sensory information, shift toward more global or evaluative processing, prioritize task completion over fine motor adjustment. In other words, your brain just wants to get through the song. It doesn't care about whether or not you sound great when you're singing. From the singer's perspective, this may feel like less access to subtle sensation. You can't really feel what's happening. Difficulty tracking breath or resonance. How am I breathing? It doesn't feel like I'm breathing at all. A sense of losing detail. Everything seems kind of foggy in the voice. This may not be a failure of technique, although it is true that if your vocal practice hasn't developed automaticity, it will just increase cognitive load even more. And we're going to talk about that in another session. A singer may have the technical capacity for the performance they're trying to do, but performance conditions can alter how sensory and attentional resources are allocated in real time in the moment. In other words, performance changes how sensory information is represented in your mind. The good news is that this environment can lead to singing better than you do at home. But that takes some intentional focused practice, which we're going to talk about later in this video. You can read about these issues in the neuroscience references at the description if you're interested in learning more about what I'm talking about. Performance also introduces a form of functional multitasking. Even when tasks are well learned, the system must coordinate motor execution, memory retrieval, timing, expression, intention. Under high cognitive load environments, the system tends to rely on the most established coordination patterns. This is very efficient, but it costs you something. When load increases, earlier or more strongly learned coordination patterns may reemerge. That's why your older technical habits, your previous tension patterns, less efficient coordination strategies, they take over. It's easier for the brain to calculate using these so you can get through the song. So what singers often experience as, I've gone backwards, I'm not learning anything, this is worse than I was, it may actually be that the system is accessing a different coordination pattern because of the load and pressure that it's under. That's why automaticity in training is vital to having fun and performance. You have less to think about. There is another layer that becomes particularly relevant in performance. It's called self-referential processing. We can also label that as identity-related processing. It's about the sense of self, your identity. During performance, the brain may allocate more resources to self-evaluation, social perception, anything that's identity-related in meaning. That's because of the social role of music. We know from many, many studies that music and singing has an enormous role in our social network and how we relate in society. And this comes out in full force when you're in performance. The self-referential network involves areas of your brain associated with the default mode network and also parts of your medial prefrontal systems, if that's relevant to you. But the default mode network is interesting for everybody, because the default mode network is the part of our mind that we use for like daydreaming and when you're kind of staring out the window and you appear to be procrastinating or wasting time, but you're actually allowing a lot of learning to happen and a lot of creativity to happen. So the default mode network is very important for creativity, flow state, and other aspects of stuff we love to do. So this will be more active in performance just by the nature of being in front of people. Recent research on performance, self-referential cognition, and attention shows that increased self-referential processing, this identity material, competes with task-focused processing. That means that your brain prioritizes information related to your identity over information related to singing well. In singing, this may appear as increased awareness of how one is perceived, about how people are thinking about you, heightened internal narrative, which means like that inner chatter in the back of your head. Is this right? Did I do this good? How did that sound? That didn't sound right. This kind of unconscious or subconscious chatter that goes on sometimes. Difficulty maintaining sensory focus, because sensory focus is vital to singing well. And this is all not simply psychological, it's biological. It's a shift in the neural resource allocation. It's how your brain is calculating what it needs to do to get the best, most efficient result for you. Again, not necessarily getting you to sing beautifully, because your brain can't calculate that. So, in summary, inconsistency in performance comes from increased load, attention redistribution, functional multitasking, choosing the easiest route to get the job done, and identity processing. But what can we do about it? Well, this is a framework for you for consistency in performance. Number 1, intentional focus. Automaticity practice and task focus. We're going to give you some real practical ideas for how you can do these 3 things. You can't do it by trying to eliminate complexity. but by learning to stabilize your attention networks within complex conditions. For example, number 1, variable conditions practice. Practice under gradually increasing levels of complexity, movement, visual distraction, simulated audio conditions. I encourage my singers to reach out to friends and family, practice their songs, sing in front so the neighbors can hear you. Get used to the fact that other things are going to be going on around you when you're singing. This allows the system to adapt to higher load conditions. So the more distractions you have, the more demands you have on your mind, the more your body's going to get used to handling coordination while there's a lot going on. Another tip, number 2, pre-performance attention calibration before performing. So that means when you're getting ready to go on, establish a stable attentional reference. You can choose auditory memory, sensory focus, auditory imagery, musical phrasing. Choose some intentional focus. What's the message? Or do you want to get in flow state as quickly as possible? You can choose the intention. This creates continuity between practice and performance. And every professional singer I know has a routine before they go on stage to help themselves get to where they want to be when they start performing. Number 3, selective sensory prioritization. Instead of trying to monitor everything that's going on and control everything, deliberately prioritize one thing. Choose 1 or maybe 2 sensory signals that are going to be important to you and help you get through what you need to do on stage. For example, you could decide, I'm going to focus on the vowel in my imagination. I'm going to hear the vowel sound in my mind. I'm going to focus on the groove, the beat. No matter what style of music you sing or you play, the sensation of the beat and the groove is paramount to doing everything, right? Vibratory sensation. You could focus on how things feel because that's much more reliable than how they sound. You could also focus on phrase timing. What's important? What's the message in these lyrics? Where am I going to emphasize? And you choose this before you perform, before you get on stage. And that gives you, again, some practice. So you're reducing the cognitive load, the sensory load for your performance. It helps you maintain signal clarity under cognitive and sensory load. Number 4, reduce self-referential load. So rather than trying to eliminate self-awareness and trying to force yourself not to think about things like distractions and what the audience is doing or how you think they're thinking and things like that, shift towards task-relevant perception. What does that mean? It means what perception is important in your singing. For example, musical phrasing. We talked about that before. The music, the acoustic interaction. You can choose your focus even when the environment is loud or distracting. If you are very clear in your mind about the task that you want to achieve, what are you doing? That will distract your mind and pull resources away from self-referential processing. It just takes practice. It also reduces the likelihood of older patterns reemerging under the cognitive load. The interaction between sensory load, attention, identity, and motor coordination is something I explore in much more depth in the Singer's Mind report, where these systems are mapped in detail and connected to training approaches. I also tell a lot of stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else about my life and my experience and my students, and we try to make the study of neuroscience and singing completely relevant, practical, and fun. So performance does not simply test your singing. It's not a test. It changes the conditions under which coordination is generated. And your job is to get used to those conditions and find out how they're affecting you and manage your intentional focus. The performance increases sensory load, it introduces multitasking, and it shifts how attention is allocated. Under those conditions, the coordination of your voice will change. But that also means consistency is not about controlling every detail, and it's not about winging it or improvising everything. It's about learning how to stabilize coordination within complex, changing environments. In plain English, getting your mind used to many different conditions so when something new comes, there is less cognitive and sensory load. And referring back to performance anxiety or stage fright, even if you begin the performance with excitement and good energy, ready to go, this increase in load can cause anxiety too. So performance anxiety and stage fright have many different roots. You can watch part 2 of this series again for more information on that. And also it is a topic we're going to continue to explore in later videos. If these topics resonate with you in your life, please click subscribe and sign up for the 5-day email mini course. It's free, doesn't cost anything, there's no hidden charges. The link is in the description below. And remember, if you want to change your singing, change your mind.